Who was the greatest rock band in the world from 1969 to 1979? Was it the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin? Both bands released 8 studio albums during this time. Who was the greatest band starting in 1969? The Rolling Stones released Beggar's Banquet in December 68, while Led Zeppelin released Led Zeppelin 1 in January 69. Both albums are engineered by Glyn Johns. The Rolling Stones released a #1 hit single, Honky Tonk Woman, in July. Led Zeppelin released A Whole Lot of Love, an edited single for the American market, in November 69, making #4 on the Billboard charts. The band refused to release singles in the UK. Led Zeppelin do 3 tours of North America. They also tour the UK and Scandinavia. The Rolling Stones play a free concert in Hyde Park after the death of Brian Jones and introduce Mick Taylor on guitar. They also embark on a 24-date US tour and play the Altamont Speedway in San Francisco on the 6th of December. Led Zeppelin 2 is released in October. Let It Bleed is released on the 5th of December. Led Zeppelin are creating their own status as rock legends, but 1969 goes to the Rolling Stones. 1970, Led Zeppelin 3 is released in October. The Rolling Stones release one of the greatest live albums of all time, entitled Get Your Yayas Out, in September. Led Zeppelin complete 2 tours of North America and tour Europe, the UK, Iceland, Germany, and appear at the Bath Blues Festival in June 1970. The band's following has increased, and so have their album sales. The Stones embark on a 23-date tour of Europe and release the film Gimme Shelter, which portrays the Stones as a dangerous band in the public's eye, and they become even more famous for it. At this point in time, the Stones are known as the greatest rock and roll band in the world, but with Mick Taylor on guitar, they can easily compete in the 70s rock arena. But Led Zeppelin's touring schedule and album release gives them the edge. 1970 goes to Led Zeppelin. 1971, Led Zeppelin released their 4th album, untitled and commonly known as Led Zeppelin 4, in November. The Rolling Stones released their masterpiece, Sticky Fingers, in April on their own record label called Rolling Stones Records, featuring a tongue and lips logo. The Stones single, Brown Sugar, goes to #1 on the Billboard charts, and the Stones embark on an 18-date UK tour in March. Led Zeppelin tour the UK, Europe, North America, Japan, and return for a second UK winter tour. Mick's marriage to Bianca starts a jet-setting lifestyle that gives the Stones the edge. But Led Zeppelin are the hardest working rock band in the world and have just released one of the greatest albums of all time, untitled, eventually going on to sell 37 million copies worldwide. So 1971 goes to Led Zeppelin. 1972, Led Zeppelin embark on another world tour of Australia, North America, Japan, and the UK, and do not release an album in 1972. The Rolling Stones release a double album called Exile on Main Street in May, and the Stones embark on a North American tour. The Stones' 1972 tour is glorified by the rock press, and they become the media darlings. 1972 goes to the Rolling Stones. 1973, Led Zeppelin release Houses of the Holy in March. The Stones release Goat's Head Soup in August and have another #1 hit single with Angie. The rock press and the public at large start to take notice of Led Zeppelin for its fan base, album sales, and Concert Attendance Records. They embark on another world tour and finish their American tour with 3 sold-out nights at the Madison Square Gardens. The band are exhausted and take a much-needed break of 18 months. The Rolling Stones tour Australia and Europe, featuring Mick Taylor for the last time on stage in the 1970s on lead guitar. 1973 goes to Led Zeppelin. 1974, the Rolling Stones release It's Only Rock and Roll in March, the album making #1 on the Billboard charts and #2 on the UK charts. The Rolling Stones decide not to tour in 74. Led Zeppelin do not tour or release an album and take time off to record. So 1974 goes to the Rolling Stones. 1975, Led Zeppelin released the double album Physical Graffiti in February on their own record label called Swan Song. The album is a huge critical and commercial success. The Rolling Stones tour America with Ronnie Wood replacing Mick Taylor on guitar. It is a huge tour with 46 shows, but Led Zeppelin's music has now engulfed America, selling truckloads of albums. Although they only tour America in spring, they finish the touring year at the Earls Court Arena in London with 5 sold-out shows in May. 1975 goes to Led Zeppelin. 1976, Led Zeppelin began a run of bad luck, starting with a car crash in August 75 that injures Robert Plant, cancelling all touring plans for 1976. The band retreat to the recording studio and release their album Presence in March, and the film and soundtrack recorded from the 1973 tour called The Song Remains the Same. Both albums received mixed reviews. The Rolling Stones released the album Black and Blue in April, featuring guest guitarists, namely Ronnie Wood. The Stones embark on a massive tour of Europe and the UK, selling out 6 nights at the Earls Court London Arena in May, and also headlining the Nebworth Fair in August to 200,000 people. The Stones were not only the biggest band in the world, but they wholly defined what rock and roll should be. 1976 goes to the Rolling Stones. 1977, Keith famously gets busted in Toronto on the 24th of Feb, and suddenly the future of the Stones is in doubt. They release a live album, Love You Live, in September to mixed reviews. The Stones do not tour or release a studio album in 77. Zeppelin embark on their largest North American tour ever, 53 dates, selling 1.3 million tickets. On the 30th of April, they performed to 76,000 people at the Pontiac Silverdome Stadium, a new world record attendance for a solo indoor attraction. The tour is cut short after 44 shows due to the death of Robert Plant's son. Plant goes into mourning. The massive tour gives 1977 to Led Zeppelin. 1978, while Robert Plant mourns the death of his son, Led Zeppelin's future is in doubt. The Stones bounce back and release one of their best-selling albums of the 70s in June called Some Girls. They also have a #1 hit single with Miss You. They embark on a 25-date stadium tour of North America with a back-to-roots rock and roll energy. 1978 goes to the Rolling Stones. 1979, the Rolling Stones spend the year recording Emotional Rescue. Led Zeppelin release In Through the Outdoor in August 79, the album cover coming out in a brown paper bag. Led Zeppelin then headlined the Nebworth Festival on the 4th and 11th of August as comeback shows. The Rolling Stones take the year off, so 1979 goes to Led Zeppelin. So Led Zeppelin 6, the Rolling Stones 5. Rolling Stones road manager and pianist Ian Stewart is the only session musician to ever play on any Led Zeppelin recording. He played piano on Rock and Roll and Boogie with Stu. Jimmy Page recorded with the Stones in the early 1960s and ended up on a demo version of Heart of Stone. He also recorded with the Stones in 1973 on the Goat's Head Soup sessions and ended up on a song called Scarlet, released on the deluxe edition in 2020. Page also played on One Hit to the Body in '85. John Paul Jones also did the string arrangement for the Stones recording She's a Rainbow. Please comment on what you think. Subscribe to Classic Rock Cave. Thanks for watching. Cheers for now.